All right, let's see who wins. Haha, I win. Phase. Hear me roar. And he's gone. And he's gone. And he's gone. There you go. Uber Elder down. Easy deathless first try. What's up, YouTube? Demi here with another build guide. So this is a Incinerate or Firestorm or Flame Surge or Fireball, all of those skills. Vol, Flame Blast, all of that stuff works with this character. So it's basically a crit, low life, fire caster, more or less. And it works with just about everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in some setups real quick. So we can go do a Guardian probably? Yeah, doesn't matter. We'll do one of those things. But yeah, I've taken this through all the Guardians, all the Uber Elder Guardians. I did Shaper a bunch of times, you know, just a general endgame test for this character, and did fine. I'll try to include some clips of all of that at the beginning of this video. Hopefully I did that already, so I guess I shouldn't have said that. But it's pretty solid, like ridiculously solid. Incinerate was buffed, Fireball was buffed, Flame Surge, Flame Blast were buffed. Like, look at this fucking AoE. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't... What? It's so good. And you can do it as a life base, you can do it as CI, you can do it as low life, like all of that stuff works. I'm dual curse, I'm crit, I believe I mentioned that. Right now I'm low life for the free damages, but you don't need to be low life. Just kind of nice. And I'm using a lot of like interesting things. I'm using a Cinder Swallow urn for the first time. This like ignite flask. Enemies take 10% increased damage when they're ignited might be during flask effect, which is a more multiplier, and then of course we got some crit on it as well. It's just overall really good. It also heals you when you kill things. You get mana and % ES on kill, which allows you to do some pretty cool sustain while mapping. Plus all the new spell damage leech and crits cast speed stuff while holding a shield on the skill tree. It's all really good. So it got a huge amount of room for customization if you want to be tankier, if you want to be less damage, if you want to be like, I don't know, more AoE, more cast speed. Like there's a huge amount of stuff on the tree to get for that stuff. Also, I learned that with a general crit spell, this is a 2-link Orb of Storms. It clears T16 maps by itself. So they buffed that as well. Orb of Storms is pretty good. I'm using Orb of Storms for power charge on crit and onslaught, and I'm using a Stormbrand setup for double curse on hit. Curse on hit warlords, curse on hit assassins. Mostly for bossing, so I can get the leech and power charge generation, and the increased crits is kind of nice for me. It's overall really good. I'll let you see my POB Shaper DPS in a minute, but it's kind of dumb. Like with Vol Flame Blast, I one-shot Shaper at 20 million HP. Guardians I can one-shot. Like, it's just overall real stupid. You just kind of go like this, and he's gone. There you go. There's your Guardian example. Okay, so skill tree wise, Ascendancy wise, all that good stuff. This is a level 95 Elementalist. You don't need to be level 95, but more points the better. Let's start with the Ascendancies. We take Pendulum Destruction for a rotating buff of AoE / elemental damage. We also take Mastermind of Discord for 25% pen while affected by Herald of Ash, increase effect of Heralds and reduce reservation of Heralds, all of which is good for us. 25% fire pen is insane. Plus Herald of Ash gives us more damage as well, so great. We also take Shaper of Desolation, which is a rotating buff of Shock, Chill, Ignite, and then all three. It's really good for bossing. You also get Beacon of Ruin, which allows you to guarantee that your shocks always make you get at least 20% increased damage taken, which is a 20% more multiplier. You get more Ignite damage, you get to slow things, and it prolifts your Elementals conflux this thing everywhere. It's really good. Elementalist is just pretty strong overall. So, skill tree wise, this is where things get kind of interesting, because there's a lot of differences you can make to this character to make it like your style. So we just take a bunch of ES nodes. Basically, I would recommend you level as life-based. So if you're leveling as life-based, I'll try to include a tree in the path of building for that, but it's basically just instead of ES nodes, you take the life nodes that are right next to them. Like, instead of these, you take these. Instead of these, you take these. Instead of, I don't know, these, you take these. You take these. Instead of these ES nodes, you take these. Like, Instead of these ES nodes, you take the life nodes. It's all fairly simple. There's life nodes here as well. But yeah, we take a bunch of area damage stuff, spell crit, crit multi, fire damage, elemental damage, spell damage, jewel sockets we'll go over in a second. More crit, crit multi. I actually currently have mana nodes because I was using FLAMEBLAST, which is a little bit more mana heavy than I would like. So let me undo that real quick. This is what I mean by the tree is very customizable. I can take the channeling skill stuff if I'm using a channeling skill, which is what I would normally have set. I have crit multi over here. I got ghost reaver, so we can leech ES instead of life and multiply our recovery rate, which is really nice. You get a little bit of recovery rate from other things as well. I think I have another cluster somewhere, or I did. Maybe I don't anymore. Either way, down here we got a unnatural instinct, which you don't need at all, but it's pretty nice. If you don't want to take these nodes, you don't have an unnatural, you can take like over here for more ES and another jewel socket works fine. You could take these 2 nodes. Like there's a bunch of options. We have 1 reservation node over here and 3 over here, so that I'm able to reserve all of my life and most of my mana to get the low life bonus, which is a 30% more spell damage multiplier if you're below 35% of your maximum life, which is pretty easy to get with like a blood magic jewel and like an aura true, easy. All the fire damage nodes up here. We got some more leech up here. ES, extra curse because we're using Assassin's Mark Warlords. 3 sockets or 3-point jewels. Fire damage, burning damage, crit multi for spells, channeling stuff. This is also channeling stuff. Crit multi with the shield, cast speed, you know. Reservation we talked about. And then we have this node over here for burning damage, elemental damage, and 5% pen. So just with this and the Ascendancy, I'm at 30. And then I believe I get 6 up here, yeah. So I'm at 36 fire pen with no pen jewels. You can also get like a 10% pen enchant, fire pen for like 90 pen if you really wanted. As for the jewels, there's a ton of stuff you can get for jewels, so this is where things get kind of interesting. Depending on what spell you choose, I'm using a lot of like area fire damage spells, so those all are the same scaling for us. It's just area, spell, fire, all those stuff, right? So at least if I can list out everything that works for us. Crit multi for spells, crit multi for elemental, crit multi for fire skills, global crit multi, area damage, increased damage, spell damage while holding a shield, cast speed, attacking cast speed while holding a shield. Oh god, cast speed with fire skills, since we're using flame dash and fire skills, that works as well. Any of those things, increased energy shield also is great. And then if you have an unnatural instinct, you put it here. It gives you 45 multi, 26 spell damage, 9% cast speed, and movement speed, along with some dex int. It's a pretty stupid place to put a jewel. You get all of the nodes around it, so it's really good there. If you don't have that, just use another rare jewel. They're not expensive. 4 property jewels are nothing. I think I paid like 30C for these. They're cheap as shit, even in standard. And then if you have a Watcher's Eye, because we are using Anger and Zealotry, so a Watcher's Eye for either of those is great, or even Discipline if you wanted. I'm using one for Anger. It's just crit multi and fire damage. If you had Pen, crit multi I believe is the best combo, and then fire damage on top of that if you can get it, but this is not the best, but it's still really good. All of my jewels otherwise are just like multi-cast speed damage. Like I don't have any ES nodes, or any ES jewels, Jesus. So if you want to get that stuff, sure, great. As for the bandits, I probably recommend Kill All or Alira if you want more damage. If you're struggling with skill points because you're a lower level, I'd recommend skill points. If you want to min-max the endgame for pure damage, take the Alira later. You can change it by vendoring 20 regrets and a intelligence necklace. I believe you get a book of regret and you can switch your favor over to Alira. But yeah, as for the customization aspect of this, if you're using channeling, you can take the channeling nodes. If you're not using channeling and you want more mana, you can take the mana nodes. If you're life-based, we kind of talked about already. If you want more jewel sockets, take more jewel sockets. If you don't want to go low life, you could just go CI. If you don't have a Shavs because they're relatively expensive this league, you can just go like CI. You lose a little bit of damage, but you use a higher ES chest for cheaper, which works out great. So as for the gear, we are wearing a, let's see, any specific uniques? I'm using 3 uniques. Shavs wrapping, so chaos damage doesn't bypass energy shield. This is only required if you're low life. If you're not low life, just use a Vol Regalia or something. I'm using a Cinder Swallow Urn for the 10% more damage, and it gives you Onslaught and mana and ES recovery, which is great. And then I'm using a Wise Oak because we are fire res balanced, so my fire res is the highest number in parentheses, even with flasks up, which means I get the pen bonus from this and I take less lightning damage. If you make them all the exact same, you get pen for all 3 and take 10% less of all 3. So it's a really powerful flask if you feel like finagling your gear. I didn't worry about that too much. I just went for, you know, that. It's a good amount of pen without having a pen jewel. What else is there? The rest of the gear is just energy shield stuff. Helmet, energy shield resists. If you're just starting out, I'd recommend going for at least 200 to 250 to start out with. Shield, same thing. You can get energy shield that resists, intelligence, spell damage, spell crit, all that good stuff. I would recommend going for at least a 300 to start out with, and then work your way up as you get more and more gear. Boots, ES movement speed resists. If you can get intelligence, great. Like 100, 150 would be fine with movement speed. You don't need the movement speed that much, but it's nice. 150 ES is probably fine. Gloves, same thing. If you get like 100 to 150, whatever. ES resists, int, whatever you can get. Dex if you need it, strength if you need it, you know. Belt, you're gonna want to get either a crystal belt or like in League, shaped crystal belt or shaped chain belt would be great. So you can get this energy shield recovery rate modifier, which is a more multiplier to how fast you can leech and regen. But if you don't have access to a shaper one, or you just want to use a Stygian belt with like ES resists on it, crafted damage, fire damage, elemental damage from fossils are all really good as well. You don't need Aspect of the Spider, you can drop that. If you don't have Enlightens, you don't need Aspects of the Spider, don't worry about it. Rings, ES resists, stats if you need them, ES resists, stats if you need them. Amulet, pen, ES resists, stats if you need them. Crit multi is great here. Fire damage is great here. If you can get Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark, and Warlord's Mark rings, it would actually free up a lot of sockets instead of this 4-link Curse on Hit setup. You could just have it on your rings. You can get quite a bit of ES out of rings nowadays by using dense fossils, and getting the energy shield from body armor mod would probably give you more overall ES than this ring actually does. They're still pretty solid. As for the weapon, you have a billion options here. You're just looking for a bunch of like spell damage, crit multi, elemental damage, area damage, fire damage, pen, anything really. You could get like a pseudo 4-link, 5-link, 6-link setup in your weapon, and then just like have a 6-link main DPS setup. If you want to do a clear setup for like with like Firestorm or Fireball would work fine, and then swap into Incinerate on your main 6-link if you want to one-shot a boss, or even Wall Flameblast. There's a ton of options here. It's all just fire damage stuff. As for the enchantment stuff, let's see. Helmet, you're gonna want whatever your main skill is, damage most likely. For me, that seemed to be the highest damage for all of these, was all like 40% increased damage for all of these skills was best. Or Incinerate, I believe, has max stages would be better. I don't have that. Boot enchant, lots of options there. Attack and cast if you killed recently, leech if you've hit recently, or killed recently, sorry. 10% pen if you haven't killed recently is most likely the highest single target damage setup, but it's only for bossing. I have the regen enchant. Again, this character is not fully min-max, I just threw it together today on stream. Glove enchant, I'd recommend Commandment of Winter or the Fire Comet one. I don't remember what that one's called. Or of Spites defensively. I don't know, there's lots of options there as well. As for the gem setups and gem links, if you have a Stygian, grab something like this with ES, flat damage to fire damage to spells and shields. Crit multi is good here, onslaught on kill is great here. But you just want damage to your spells mostly. Main 6-link setup. There's a lot of these. All of them are in the path of building. All of the skills that I recommended. But this Incinerate setup is Incinerate, Immolate, Combustion, Controlled Destruction, Arcane Surge, and Infused Channeling. Both of which have been heavily buffed this league. They're pretty solid. So if you're on a 4-link, I would cut Controlled Destruction and Immolate, I believe, are your last ones. So it'd be Incinerate, Arcane Surge, Infused Channeling, Combustion. And then you go for Controlled Destruction and Immolate as your last two. We got a Curse on Hit Stormbrand setup, or whatever you want to use. I like Stormbrand. It's easy to drop it and it attaches to the enemy, so you don't have to worry about it. So Stormbrand, Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark, Warlord's Mark, because again, we are dual curse, so we can use both. Gives us Leech, gives us Mana Leech, Life Leech, and Power Charges, and, you know, Generation, all that good stuff. The other quality setup, whatever you want to call it, is Orb of Storms linked to Power Charge on crit and Onslaught support. So this gives us power charges all the time, even on bosses when Assassin's Mark isn't able to get kills for us and give us those power charges, we can still get it all the time. And then I have a link to Onslaught because it gives you a 10% chance to get Onslaught when you hit a unique enemy for bossing. You can have it up all the time. And whenever you're just, you know, clearing, you have a pretty huge chance of getting Onslaught because it's, as I showed you, the Orb of Storms can kill things by itself, and it's only level 16. It's really dumb. Other setups, Aura setups, so this is a little bit confusing. For life, I'm sorry, for on my mana, I'm using a... No, I was right. I was sorry. On life, I'm using a Herald of Ash, Zealotry, so a 25% aura and a 50% aura linked to a level 20 Blood Magic and a level 4 Enlighten. With my reservation is enough that I'm at like 62 life. I checked with the level 21 Blood Magic. I have like 2% more life unreserved, which does nothing, so you just get a 20 and you'll be fine. And then the other aura setup is over here. We have an Anger, 50% and a 35% on mana, linked with an Enlighten. You don't need this because you're not going to have the Aspect of the Spider. So without Aspect of the Spider, you can just do these two. Anger, Discipline, and you're fine. You got plenty of mana to cast with. You could even maybe throw in a Clarity if you wanted a little bit more regen. But I have an Aspect of the Spider, so I decided to try to fit all of that on, just for some more defensiveness and damage. Aspect of the Spider makes enemies take increased damage and slows them down. Last little setups, we got a cast when damage taken setup. So if we take a spike of damage, we get Immortal Call, which gives us Fizz immunity. We do have endurances from our warlords, so we get longer duration. A lot of people are confused by this. It has a base duration of 0.4 seconds. You don't need endurance charges to use this. Any level of Immortal Call, it's 0.4 seconds duration. If you have endurance charge generation, then you can up the level because it increases the duration per endurance charge. But I'd always get 0.4. I also have a Lightning Golem for the attack and cast speed, and a phase run for a little bit of movement speed when I take a hit so I can get away from them. I have a portal gem in my unset ring. You don't need this, it's just quality of life for me. And a flame dash in my other unset, which is not linked to anything, so if you wanted this to be faster, I'd recommend linking it to faster casting. But I'm lazy, so we'll just leave it in here. It's a level 24 flame dash. Look at that cooldown recovery, it's pretty solid. Is there anything else you need to talk about gear-wise? Flask, other flasks. I have a diamond flask for the double... Diamond flask lets you roll your crits twice. So if you're a crit build, you almost always want some kind of diamond flask. I have a consecrated ground flask, which gives you even more crit this league. They buffed consecrated ground. I think there's a display for it, but it gives you increased crit strike chance, which is nice. And a wise oak, which we talked about. Quicksilver flask to go fast, and the cinder swallow urn. If you don't have access to this is relatively expensive. You can drop this for like an Aziri's Promise. It still gives you leech and more damage, but this is a pretty huge more multiplier if you can afford it. I'd recommend you getting a bleed flask and a freeze flask on one of these two, or even on your Quicksilver. As long as you have a bleed, a freeze, and a movement speed somewhere on these three, the order doesn't matter. Just put it on those three somewhere. You'll be fine. Pantheons, I would recommend stun and phase rejection if you've been hit recently. And I believe that's it. Let's go look at Path of Building. That's the fun part. So, my Flame Surge damage with a 6-link is 4 mil on Shaper. And everything is up all the time because you're an Elementalist and you have all of this on-hit stuff. It's pretty great. As for the other skills, Firestorm, which is also really good, you can get your average hit to about 125k per fireball, which doesn't sound like a lot, but here, let me put in the setup for it. Instead of channeling, we put in Echo, and instead of something else, we put in something else. I forgot what I did already. I just checked out the main skill. All right, here's Firestorm. Like, each one of those little hits is going to do 140k damage or something, you know? And once you're leeching, you can just spam it on target. Back to Flameblast. Flameblast does this. Oh god, where is it? It's like 3 mil average hit, 3 mil DPS, you know, nothing major. And then Vol Flameblast does 1.8 mil and it does more damage times 3. So it's like 1.8, 3.6, 4.6, something like that. It's pretty disgusting. And then we go to Incinerate. Max stages DPS is about 3.8 mil. The release does about 800k. So it's like a pretty solid Blade Flurry that you just want to hold mostly. And then the Fireball setup, the Fireball thing was surprising to me. I didn't really think about how much damage a Fireball would do in here. Where is it? Vol Fireball. It's like, put it to 20. There you go. What is that? 2 mil DPS with the explosions, and the projectile also does 2 mil DPS. On just a normal 6-link, you know, nothing crazy. Which is pretty cool. All of these numbers are great, but then here's the secret. Guess what I'm wearing? Completely garbage gear, so that you guys wouldn't complain about my gear being too strong and the damage numbers being too high. I have put in a bunch of like relatively garbage gear. 150 ES boots, 120 ES gloves, really shit 2 property rings. Like, it's missing a ton of everything. 1 property jewels, just so you couldn't complain about the numbers being too high. So then if I put on, you know, my actual jewels, and my actual things, you'll be able to see some of the min-max potential. Not fully min-maxed, but, you know, pretty solid min-maxed. I don't know, oh god, which one of these sockets is for the unnatural? I can't tell. I don't even have it allocated, my bad. That was weird. I must have been messing with the points somewhere. Yeah, this stuff. Get rid of that, and then add the unnatural. Unnatural somewhere. Which tool socket is it? Nope, not that one. Is that the right one? Yeah, okay, there we go. That's on correctly. And then this Empyrean Spark. All right. So there's that, and then we equip actual other gear that I was wearing earlier. It's funny because these diamond rings actually give me more damage than my unsets, because my unsets have no damage on them. There you go. There's some more damages. We're doing it. And then we need to put on our Incinerate setup at max stages. It gets a lot dumber once you start adding things like level 21 gems and min-maxing a little bit, you know? It's quite fun. You can push it really, really hard. And if you're struggling with Energy Shield, you can change it out to get more ES, or you can just go for more damage. Like, I just went for a lot of damage because, you know, damage. But I'll include all these POBs. All this stuff is in the build guide, of course, in the description of this video. But hopefully that helped. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hope you see the potential of something like this, because it's really dumb. Like, you can push this thing super far, like ridiculously far. It's kind of terrifying, actually. But yeah, there's Incinerate, FLAMEBLAST, Fireball, Firestorm, and Flame Surge, all in one build guide. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one, and that'll be Demi out.